Hi, YouTube.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 13th.
Great. Always love to know what date it is today. Um,
It's the
um,
announcer voice, dude. That kicks it off. We got it.
yeah. So we are planning an online hackathon this Saturday, and I am chatting up with a few sponsoring company, and it seems like Yikes would be interested in helping us run the hackathon. So thank you, Yikes. And secondly, for the month of March, so this is kind of like a draft right now, but we're also thinking about doing AI Engineer Foundation Data March Hackathon. And the motivation for this is really thinking through problems that we face in a society. And like people have problems all day, every day. And think about like how ML and AI can help in solving these problems. And a lot of it is really bottlenecked around data. A lot of problems is just like not enough data capture in our lives. And so we wanted to do this like 1 month data march. So the idea is that essentially there are actually 5 weekends in March. And so we are sequencing it so that we
That's
go
fun.
from data collection to building an application end to end.
I love
So
that. That's awesome.
here is a draft proposal where it's week 0, the first week, we do data creation tooling. So you can build any kind of like automation tools or like a web scraping tools. So it's just tooling, and then you present about your tooling and what your idea is. And then we kick off beginning Saturday. I don't know, like we can change this like either end in like Saturday evening or Sunday. Depends. And week 1 is we do the next weekend we do the manual on synthetic data creation hackathon. So it's really just collecting data. And collecting data typically takes a bit longer. So we are the next weekend. It's like either touch grass if you've automated the prior weekend, or if the prior weekend is manual data collection, that may be like that weekend. Also, that weekend is also done, spent doing the data collection. And then week 3 is fine tuning. So with any kind of fine tuning or any kind of like using the data, right? Like it doesn't need to be fine tuning, where you're like using the data to do something, training another model, or like using the data to do something else. Or you can be just like vanilla RAG with the data. And then lastly, it's an application hackathon. The application hackathon, typically application is slightly easier. So like a 1-day hackathon seems feasible. So that's kind of like the idea, and it's very raw. So, it's the agenda is maybe I'll start another doc to paste this into, but like the idea is that it's like roughly that. It's just like, what other problems can we solve in the world that can be unblocked by data, and then like make the data make public data sets, AIEF, open source public. So it's like in the same ethos, make public data sets that can help other people solve problems as well, that like we can share the data sets afterwards. So that's kind of the idea. um, cool. And I
Awesome.
will yeah, if you have any questions or comments, that now will be the time for the hackathon idea.
Well, yeah, I think the idea is awesome. Are you familiar with Build Space at all? You kind of know that. Oh, okay. Um, so they do kind of a similar structure, and I think it's a really good one where they have where it's like it's a 6 or 8 week program or whatever, and then each week kind of has like a general like theme or thing to do. They'll do like a lecture, and then maybe like another workshop or whatever. And then like week 1 will be they'll all have like different metrics. So week 1 will be uh like come up with your idea and then do or like figure out like a post methodology, and then week 2 is like, okay, figure out your KPIs, and then week 3 is like, okay, now that you have your KPIs, like crank it up a little, go get 20 people, and kind of like that sort of structure where it's you're working on one project the whole time, but you're kind of like trying to rapidly iterate through the like with build space, it's like the small business startup kind of path, but this sounds like it would be like more technical, so it could be like a rapid iteration, like software product, more or less, right? Where it's like week 1 is like, okay, like get your plans down, etc. That's, week 2 is like start collecting data, figure out what you're doing. Week 3 is okay, now apply the data, etc., etc.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, there's like a funnel. Yeah. But the downside is like maybe every week the participating team will drop off. Like we'll see like a fraction of people would like leave. So I think like in order to make sure that we have a high retention, like maybe having a lot of like a big reward at the end might work. So as a part of this, I hope that I can make it happen for March. It's like a 15 days of or so planning. And so for each one, I kind of like have some idea of like who the sponsoring company might be. Like the first one may be more like the second weekend maybe like labeling companies. And then the first one maybe like labeling tooling companies. There are a lot of labeling tooling companies. So cool. So that's with the hackathons. Any other thoughts or ideas?
Yeah, I actually have there's a format that I've been wanting to try that maybe we could try out on this weekend. It's a little bit, the reason I haven't really given it a go, or I've like left the option on the table, but I don't think anybody's taken it so far. But I think it would be kind of fun to do a hackathon kind of in the same style as they do like an esports event. And like the way that I'm thinking about it is so I like my bot will handle each team can jump into a voice channel, which will create another voice channel that's specifically for that team. And then you can do you can have each team do that, and then at least one person capable of streaming. And then there'll be like a list with a bunch of teams that are like hanging out, hacking, working on stuff. And then whenever one of those teams signals in some way, either like pings or just goes live or whatever, we have like the host on the stage that's kind of like maybe working on their own thing or hacking or like going through some of the sponsor stuff, maybe going through a notebook or whatever. And then whenever they get a ping from a team, they jump over in there and they go like, hey, what are you like, did you guys do something cool? Is there like, tell me about what you're working on, how's your project going? Or like, oh hey, we got like, you guys are working on this problem, and then like let's come back when you solve it and see how you solved it, et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of have all the teams like signaling, hey, like this is cool and worth looking at, come take a look, and then put it on stream or whatever. Which like, yeah, so it's like complicated, but it would be really cool if it was like fucking doable, I think.
As long as we have over the top judges like any cooking show. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Walk up
That's
and
true. We need spicy ones. Yeah, I mean, like that sounds like needs quite a bit of planning, like a tooling and planning, right? Like, Yikes, are you familiar with some of the streaming tools that people can use with
Oh
this?
yeah, I have offered
Okay, great.
people to I have offered people to do this. Although I have, yeah, like I said, I haven't successfully done it. So in theory, the tools might not, like I stream on semi regularly, so I'm familiar with how those work. And then I have the auto room installed on my bot, and I know that works. So, but it's so in theory, I have all the pieces to make this work. I just haven't put them all together before.
I
So
see.
yeah, it's because yeah, it
Well,
sort
that'd
of
be cool to
requires some
try it
level.
out. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
right.
personally use Twitch a lot,
Same.
and I don't stream, but like I watch other people stream, and I've definitely been in games where there are competitions and things like that, and find it interesting. The challenge I think like that may not translate very well in software is that in software, in games, like when you're in game, you're 100%
Oh yeah.
engaged. But in coding, you sometimes you might be coding a bit and then you're like grabbing a drink or something that may not be super interesting. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's kind of the way that I'm thinking about structuring it is there will, because like in esports there's always a camera you can look at that's interesting, and sometimes there just won't be, even if there's like 20 teams or whatever. Like people will be taking breaks or working on something or stuck or like not doing anything interesting. So ideally you want to give the hosts like something to do on stage that's interesting in some way, and then the hosts that they can also like drop and pick back up whenever they're done, and then you can wait for the teams to go like, hey, we just figured out this thing, this script is running and it's doing this cool thing, and then we can pop over and take a look at it.
And the host should also be able to, like, if nothing interesting is going on, the host should also be able to like pull up interesting things that are happening in tech right now and like show interesting demos and something like that. I feel like actually Swix might be a good person to do that because he's always super plugged in and everything. And he knows, I think like if I can like duplicate Swix, I would copy paste. Get him to do more
Well,
things.
right, yeah. Well, yeah, there's a couple. It depends on who we like. The panel that I would think of is like, or like in an like maybe like some of the Twitter people like Technium or Niston or somebody from Skunkworks, and then maybe some of the like Spaces people, and then maybe some the
we can also pull in some tech influencers as well.
You know what we could do? We could also grab people like Yohei or like from the VC investor side and be like, hey, like here are some of the pitches. Like, what do you think about this kind of product? Or like, what's your experience with this kind of task that this team is kind of heading in that direction? And here's some other examples of this kind of thing and like what worked and what didn't work, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of like a round robin of like, here's how you build an AI company. Oh, let's take a detour and watch somebody go do it when they're doing something like that.
I like that. Okay, so we will let me like flesh out a little bit more, and then for this, so let's figure out what's doable for this weekend.
Yeah.
And then like I'll have a more concrete plan for the data march, and maybe like for the final application we do something like that, or maybe this weekend. It depends on what's doable. So let's chat afterwards as well.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Great. Zane, do you mind if I let you take it to talk about the PR, and then
Sure.
I'll talk about the API as well.
I'm actually going to make it pretty short because I was hoping that Nalbion or Brandon would be here to discuss them as well. But in essence, so we've got some activity in the repository, and what we're looking for ideally is somebody that wants to help contribute, because peer review and everything is a big part of the process. But if everybody's only contributing and nobody's reviewing as well, then there's that. So anybody out there that's interested in taking a look at the repository, give us a shout. And I will be having an office hour on Friday where I do that as well. So if anybody's interested in doing it in tandem, feel free to drop in.
Yeah, dude. Can you talk about Friday? What time?
Friday at the same time as the Agent Protocol meeting. So 11:30 Central Time for me, 9:30 Pacific Time, whatever 11:30 plus 7 is for people in Lisbon. I don't know.
Cool. Sorry, yikes! I
was saying, we can make a stream of it where we, maybe once a week or whatever, we like hop on stream and then go through some of that and do code review and stuff. Could be fun.
That should be a lot of fun, and that's something that I think is going to be really interesting as we go forward, and how we engage the community in what way we do that. So I'm very excited to get out there and advertise this open source project to as many people as we can, and get more people involved, because I think it could make for a very fun community.
Hell yeah.
Mhm.
But
Right
that's all
there
from
with
me.
you, buddy. Mhm.
Great. So okay. We'll follow up with Brandon to see an updated plan on the PR, and then we can also discuss it in the office hour. So for the API side, last week I was working on a query understanding agent or clarifying agent. So basically, the idea is that the agent, uh, during the process of perhaps executing a step, the agent might have decide that I don't have all the information I need to execute the step, and so I implemented a way to have the agent kind of bubble up the thoughts that, hey, like I don't have all the information to execute the step. Please give me more information. So it's the opposite. So instead of a human asking agent to do things like one-way communication, like always like human and then the agent respond, it's more like the agent be like coming back to the human, be like, I don't have all the information. Give me more information. Here's the question that I need more information to. So I implemented this, and it's very interesting because I think like a real world agent is just not like someone who always receives. It's also someone who like asks question. So that's like the underlying thing that I implemented, and I kind of was just thinking through about the AI agent protocol, like the interface, and I think like the way I implemented it is like I implemented on top of AI agent protocol. So it feels like it's not like it's in addition to, and it's not like natively supported. And I was a little bit curious to see what people think about like things like that, which is like the agent giving back user some feedback, and some giving control back to the user to do clarification or that things that help the agent understand. And so that's like the motivation behind if there's an API change that's needed to allow that to happen, or yeah,
Yeah,
and if yeah,
I think it'd be
curious to
interesting
hear.
to take these models and sort of put them side by side and see how they fare by comparison to each other. I mean, so like creating an agent essentially with one with the agent protocol as it is now, and then one that has the clarifying agents, and then demonstrating the difference and the benefit that there could be. But I do think that there's a benefit in having the agent being able to say specifically, I need input, because there's nothing wrong with that, I think, in general. But yeah, I think it's all about how to implement that, and what the response looks like in the schema.
Yeah, that would be my thought too, where it's like yes, I like for the vast majority of programs that use agents, like agents should be able to ask for help. Like that's like it, especially in the state they are now. Like having them just do things entirely by themselves is not a great idea.
Right.
And having the agent be able to queue for that is important. And then my question would be like for agent protocol, the like does the existing protocol allow for someone to implement that feature if they want to, and like have it like stay consistent with the communication protocol that that agent protocol has established, um, and if so, then would we is it within scope to um to implement that for them, or is it more appropriate for the protocol, the communications protocol, to stick to like this is how you communicate, or like this is the schema in which data will be exchanged, um, and how you want to set up triggers for when that exchange happens is up to you, would be my thought on how that ought to work. But I'm not as familiar with the code base as you guys are, so it may be well within scope, and I just don't know.
Yeah, so right now, like I implemented it on, I feel like my implementation is more on the SDK level. It's like more on like how to, like I'm assuming, so the difference between my implementation and agent protocol API is that I'm just more, it's like mostly just I have a notebook that in Python, I can maybe show it to you. In Python, let me show it to you actually. I don't think there's anything that's like not open source. Let me quickly share my screen.
Sounds good.
Wait, where is the share screen? There we go. Okay, here. So basically all I did was I made an agent, and then this agent has a chat functionality, which is a wrapper around create task. And I said, okay, so my original question is, which countries are each city from? Can you see this, by the way? Do I need to zoom
It's
in?
a little blurry.
Yeah, one notch.
Okay, sorry. Oh, oops, I did 3 notch.
That's actually,
there we go.
You might do the 3 notches. It's
Yeah, 3 notches better.
still a bit blurry.
Oh, 3 notches better. Okay.
There you go.
How's now? Okay.
That's better.
Good. So original question is, which country are each city from? And it's like, I didn't even specify each city, right? So it's like obviously vague. And so the agent chat is basically a wrapper around agent create task, which is fine. And so like I have a try catch here that catches the human input required exception. And then the message of the exception is the question that that the agent is wondering. So as here, like the current input is, which countries are each city from? And then this is the original question. The response is, does not provide any specific information about countries each city mentioned belongs to. And then the response, it says, requires human input. Could you please specify which cities you are referring to? And I said, so in this case, I inputted Toronto and Tokyo. And then the current input became, which countries are the cities Toronto and Tokyo located in? And that's a query rewrite that's based on this like prompt. So it's basically like based on a set of clarifying questions, rewrite the original query to include, in this case, if the year you're referring to is 2022 and Uber, instead of what trajectory is the monthly earning from the 3 months, April, May, and June? As a question to, what was the trajectory of Uber's monthly earning for the month of April, May, June in 2022? So it's like just like clarifying, adding more qualifications. And then based on that, it's able to come back to Canada and Japan. And so that's the idea, is that right now it's just like in a Jupyter notebook of like, it's asking for human input. But like I'm more thinking along the lines of like the API layer of like, how does it make sense to do this throwing an exception? Because like exception is a very native way of bubbling up information. Or does it make sense to even like capture this in a step output? Like that the step output may be having a type, right? Like the type might be like, I require human input. And then based on the step output, then the calling agent or calling program does ask the user for information. So I think these are 2 different APIs that I can think of right now, just off the top of my head. And I think I don't know, like this approach is more like working around agent protocol, whereas the other approach is like having agent protocol have that functionality more natively. And but it's really based on what our philosophy is, right? Like in the past we said that our philosophy is really providing like a very bare minimum function set, if and then allow people to build on top of, then like the first approach will be better. Like it's really agent protocol right now as it is very bare minimum, and people can build things like that on top, like this one. Or if we want agent protocol to be more extensible, to be easier to use for everybody, then that's a different philosophy. Then the second approach would be better. So these are the two trade-offs.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, like if in terms of if one were to stay consistent with the existing, like we're bare minimum, we don't want to be opinionated, et cetera, et cetera. There's no reason this couldn't go in like a cookbook section or an examples section, like a lot of those utilities
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you could make this and then you could always you could get as granular as you want with that, right? Where you could you could put this as a like agent protocol brackets uh, 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 ask for help or whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about, where you have like the certain version of the package or whatever if you're installing it. Like a lot of people will do it for Hugging Face or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah, there's a
mean,
couple approaches.
yeah, like separately, it might be like a plugin system of some sort also
Yeah.
can work. Yeah. Yeah, that's the question. I guess like since it's recorded, hopefully we'll get more community members responding to it. And then Zane, when you put up the video, maybe it's also helpful to kind of say that there is maybe a debate on like which there are two choices, right? Like two decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it helps to see if what people prefer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think on some level the agent protocol the way that we're designing it is supposed to be, if I could make the sort of the relation to human language, right, where the agent protocol is the way that language would communicate between a person and another person, but not the content of what would be there, right? Does that make sense? So like the eyes and the ears and the mouth, by travel of the environment to another person, and the other person interprets that. That's the way that the content travels. But we're not. So we would be, as the agent protocol, that concept less than the content of the message, right? So with that in mind, the request for information and things like that, different ways of structuring that would be outside of the scope of the agent protocol if we're only creating the communication level, like this is how it's being transferred, right? Each agent would have
I
its
see.
own way of communicating with that mode of communication, with that method of communication, which would be the agent protocol, but the content therein could be wildly different from each other. I thought that's kind of the point where we're trying to make it so that it's natural language on the input and arbitrary object form in the additional input or additional output. That way you can structure it to have these sort of things. So your agent specifically could have the ability to specify a variable in the step response that says, hey, I need assistance, I need help here. And then your client that absorbs that, or any other client, if they have NLP support that's able to interpret that information, which ideally in the future these applications would have more capability to interpret agents dynamically, then that would be it wouldn't require the standard. It would just be your agent specifying that, which could become a standard in its own, where we could specify some things that are recommended maybe for these options. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about it while you were talking about it. So yeah.
I like that analogy. I think like if that's the case, then what may help is the config options PR, because I'm here like I'm wanting to specify the schema for the task output configs, or like a configs for task a step input, like create step configs, or create task configs, additional input by configs, I mean additional input. So I think like having more like tighter control around the schema is maybe like what I'm asking for. Yeah, but good point.
Yeah, we'll have to take another look, and anybody in the audience, feel free to comment on anywhere, and we'll take that conversation further. So
Cool. Yeah.
What's next?
Go for it. I don't have anything else. I think we can. Yeah. Anybody has anything else that they want to share? I think that's it.
Nope. I think I'm good.
All
Great.
right, I'm good as well.
Cool.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.